What's going on, guys? We are here with a tier list video. I know you guys, we as Magic players really love tier lists. We love having discussions and we love sharing our opinions. And that's what I'm going to do today. We have in front of you, what we're going to kick off with is modern banned cards. So these are cards that are currently on the modern ban list. They've been banned for varying lengths of time. And we're going to see if we can figure out if one of these 5 categories, more banned than before, which these are the best of the best. They should never be removed off the list. Stay banned, which, is still should not be removed from the list, but definitely a tier, basically like S versus A tier. Mid tier, which is maybe if the format changes at some point, power creep could happen. Can be unbanned with a playtest. These are that sort of maybe describes itself if we can test some things in the current environment and maybe things go well. And then why is this card banned? Shouldn't be on the list. That, pretty apparent. Before we get started with the tier list, I just wanted to say we're going to be doing some more discussion style content as we get closer to the November 10th, speaking of bans, the upcoming November 10th ban list. And I wanted to try to incorporate some non-gameplay stuff, as Standard has been kind of stale and we're waiting on the ban list. And Modern's still pretty good. I'm probably going to play some Modern, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. What type of tier lists would you like to see? Give me some ideas and we can maybe come up with some of those in the near future. So with all of that said, let us get started with Modern banned cards. And the first card we have on the list is Summer Bloom. Now, I'm going to put Summer Bloom in the stay banned category. I don't think it is necessarily S tier. I'm not going to put it that high. But given the performance of Amulet recently, for those of you who don't know, the Amulet Titan deck had the best win rate at the Modern Pro Tour, and it seems to just be getting better every set, so not really sure why we would give Amulet more tools, so let's just go ahead and not do that. Sensei's Divining Top. So this is a weird one where Sensei's Divining Top is an extremely powerful card. As you can see on the screen, you get to look at the top 3, you can rearrange them, and very powerful with the Miracle mechanic. It lets you set up stuff like Terminus, and to a lesser extent, Temporal Mastery and Entreat the Angels. Realistically, the reason this card was banned in the first place was due to tournament logistics. And I don't really think things have changed. Like, if you asked me, would the Miracles deck be too powerful in current Modern? Probably not, but I'm sure the Urza Saga decks would still want to play Sensei's Divining Top, so in terms of power level, I don't necessarily think Sensei's Divining Top is quite on the same power level as some of the S tier cards that we'll get to, but I do think it should stay banned, mostly for those tournament logistics. Now you want to talk about S tier cards. Chrome Box. Basically anything that is fast mana probably should stay on the ban list. I will say Chrome Box, in terms of fast mana, is maybe one of the weaker ones, but at the end of the day, it still lets people just turn 1 Chalice, and we don't really need to have that be a part of the format. Crocklane Ironworks, I think, again, not quite S tier, but I do think that KCI... What's really funny to me about Crocklane Ironworks is when it was legal before, there was all these like really weird rulings loops and like things you could do to get, or like just these weird interactions that happen with Crocklane Ironworks that just are not the most intuitive, and you have to explain to your opponent that you're like sacrificing your star to pay for something and that it's a mana ability. We don't want to have those conversations anymore. Violent Outburst. I don't know if this is personal bias, but I think Violent Outburst, I think we can have it back. Now, the argument against Violent Outburst is instant speed living end is quite good, right? This is really the reason why Violent Outburst got banned, is the fact that you can do it at instant speed with Force of Negation backup. Because a popular counterspell, believe it or not, was popular in Modern at one point in the Murktide decks and things like that, and control decks as well. And the big kind of sequence was you would, on their turn, Violent Outburst, hit your Cascade spell, whether it be Living End or Footfalls, in their end step, presumably, and then you can fight over their counterspell with Force of Negation because it's their turn. But I don't know. I think that the format has sort of moved past the point where Counterspell is actually a playable card. Sure, some of the control decks play some copies, but I think we could maybe have another look at Violent Outburst, just given how fast the format has become. Might go send Lattice up next here. The reason that Lattice was banned is because of its interaction with Karn, where you can Karn to go get the Lattice out of your sideboard, and then because the Lattice turns all of your opponent's lands and other permanents into artifacts, they can no longer tap any of their lands for mana. So I'm going to put it in stay banned. Again, this card individually, not a good card. It doesn't do anything without Karn, obviously. But given how powerful the Tron and Eldrazi Tron decks have become over the past couple of printings with stuff like Kozilek's Command and Ugin Eye of the Storms, we don't really need to give the Tron decks more help. They're already really good enough right now. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's laughable that this card is still on the ban list. I guess people would maybe play it in their sideboard as a card that's good against Boros if you're playing enough creatures. But given how combo heavy the metagame has become, stuff like Neoform and Tron and Amulet and Belcher, like, these decks just do not care about GT in the slightest. So I think it would be a decent sideboard option at best, but if they unban GT, you're not going to see people playing Stoneforge Mystic again. That's not going to happen. Blazing Shoal, more like Blazing You see where I'm going. Yeah, I don't really know why this one's here either. Colossus Hammer is just a better version of Blazing Shoal. I've been saying this for quite some time now. Really for the past couple of years. When Colossus Hammer was really big, people were having these conversations about Shoal, and I just didn't I don't really understand why you would even want to be playing a deck like Shoal over Hammer. The reason that Shoal was good before is because you get to play the busted blue cards, like the cantrips with Ponder Preordained, Gitaxian Probe, things like that. And we don't have those cards. And I think Shoal would be significantly worse without those cards. Seething Song. So I wouldn't necessarily put this in the same S tier as Chrome Mox in terms of fast mana, but I do think that Seething Song probably provides too much to decks like Storm, potentially variations on Red Belcher. I know that most of the Belcher decks now play Armado Blue, but I think that Seething Song would definitely change the equation on that. But I think for now, we probably don't need more fast mana on the format, I would say. Glimpse of Nature up next. It's a weird one. I kind of want to put this in the middle just because I'm not entirely sure. This card certainly enables some broken starts with the Elves package, like Nettle Sentinel, Heritage Druid, things of that nature. Is that something we want to mix into the format? I mean, potentially. The Elf deck with Glimpse of Nature would probably be extremely fast, especially with the unbanning of Green Sun Zenith. So maybe it's a little too much, but maybe this is kind of what this category is for, right? Certain circumstances could occur that could print more cards that are good against Elves in a future Horizon set. Maybe eventually we can have Glimpse, but I think for now, it's close. Punishing Fire. Why is this here? Basically, the reason this card was banned is because you can combine it with Grove of the Burn Willows to basically pay 3 mana to shock something every turn. If you're paying 3 mana to cast Shock, you've probably already lost the game. Dread Return. Absolutely no circumstances whatsoever could they unban Dread Return unless they ban Undercity Informer and Balustrade Spy, which they're probably not ever going to do. But yeah, without the Oops All spell stuff, Dread Return is probably okay. Like, it's still decent in Dredge decks, but unless you're milling over your entire deck, you're not OTKing with Dread Return, you're just getting back some big doofus, which is probably fine. But yeah, if we still have Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer, absolutely not. This one might be a little controversial. I'm going to include Rite of Flame in that S-tier fast mana category with Chrome Mox. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a popular opinion, but just in general, the fast mana that you can produce on turn 1, the reason Seething Song is less powerful is because it's more investment. You have to pay 3 to get 5. But Rite of Flame, again, just allows turn 1 chalices. We don't really want that kind of stuff. Ooh, Dark Depths. Now, I've seen some conversations before in some recent memory over Dark Depths, given the fact that there's stuff like Path to Exile, there's Ghost Quarter, there's all these sorts of like things that destroy lands, White Orchid Phantom. The thing is, every single time that a no ban list modern event is hosted, it seems like Dark Depths wins or places in the finals. I think it's a little bit too much, especially now that we have both Yavimaya and Urborg, which are two different legendary lands that let the Dark Depths tap for mana to go off with various combos. I think it's a little too much. Again, I could maybe be convinced to put it down in the stay banned category, but at the end of the day, probably not coming off the list anytime soon. Dig Through Time. All right, I'm not going to put Dig Through Time in S tier. I do think that as long as fetch lands remain in the format, which, spoiler alert, they're never going to get banned, we probably can't have the Delve cards back. Now, you're going to notice this when we get the Treasure Cruise, which, to be fair, is quite a ways away. I actually think that Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are in separate categories. I think Cruise is completely and utterly broken. Dig Through Time is good, but not quite as good as Cruise. We'll get there in a second when we talk about Cruise, but Dig is mostly here for like Scape Shift and other various combo decks. But again, at the end of the day, if we have fetch lands, we can't really have these Delve cards, can we? Okay, I'm going to just lump all the artifact lands together because I think that it makes sense to put them all in the same category. I'm going to put them in one day or in certain circumstances. The certain circumstances being that Mox Opal gets rebanned, because the last time I did one of these videos, I put Mox Opal in the S tier category of never being unbanned, and then they unbanned it, so I don't know. But here we are. Yeah, we can't have the artifact lands as long as Mox Opal is in, but we can probably have one and not the other. I'm not sure which one you'd rather have, but yeah, that is what it would take for the artifact lands to come back off. Once Upon a Time, I am going to put in the S tier category. 0 mana, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and find something. You're probably going to be surprised to hear this, but that's a little too good. It just allows, not only do we already have the London Mulligan, which makes decks so much more consistent. The London Mulligan combined with Once Upon a Time makes those decks that are trying to assemble creature combos, stuff like Amulet and Broodscale, Samwise Gamgee, all these kinds of decks, like they just do the thing every single time on turn 2, it feels like. Yeah, Once Upon a Time, definitely a design mistake. We shouldn't really touch that one. Oko, Thief of Crowns, probably the greatest planeswalker ever printed. I mean, I guess you could entertain some arguments where the format's too fast for Oko, but it's another one of those things where, like, well, they gave us Mox Opal, which means that we definitely can't have Oko. I don't know if anybody was playing during that time when we had both Mox Opal and Oko legal in the same format with Once Upon a Time and Uro, and it was just an absolute nightmare, and I don't really want to go back to that. Oh, Gigantha, 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 Gigantha. Now, the whole concept, this one, we're going to take a little bit of time on this one. The whole concept of Gigantha being banned in the first place was the concept of format diversity. Gigantha, if your deck could play Gigantha, there's no reason not to play it. Even if you were playing a deck that could only produce red or green mana less than 0.5% of the time, it didn't matter. You would play the Gigantha. That sort of dynamic puts some weird constraints on the format, where now you're like, okay, so you are playing a deck that maybe has one single double pip card, maybe a Liliana of the Veil, or I guess that's a bad example, something like that. And you have to really ask yourself, is it even worth playing this random double pip card if I can replace that with a slightly weaker card? I just get to have this extra card. And it gets to the point where if everybody thinks the same thing and everybody has Gigantha, you will never ever see those double pip cards, because if you are playing this sort of like attrition mid-range mirror adjacent matchup, your opponent has Gigantha and you don't, you are just at an enormous disadvantage because your opponent just gets to start with an extra card in their hand. So I think for those reasons alone, Gigantha should stay banned, although at the end of the day, it is just an 8-mana 5/5. Lurrus of the Dream Den, one of the most broken cards ever printed. Still to this day, the only card that has gotten banned in Vintage for power level reasons. I don't think I need to say any more about this Lurrus cat. Don't let Lurrus off the leash yet. Yorion up next. I don't know. Yorion's like between these two tiers for me. Again, I'm kind of at the point where Modern is at the power level where I think a card like Yorion could promote some healthy gameplay. We have banned Astrolabe, we've banned some other pieces that are good with Yorion. You know what? I'm going to put Yorion and can be unbanned with the playtest. As much as people like to think that Yorion is just about 4-color soup nonsense, like, wouldn't you agree that Modern is kind of missing that right now? It just feels like every deck is trying to kill each other on turn 3 or turn 4, and I don't know, I kind of feel like Yorion could maybe be the good guy in a spot like that. So I think Yorion could be fine. Maybe give it a play test, see what happens, try it without Astrolabe, give it a couple of test runs. Tybalt's Trickery, I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's not a good card. I understand that it's like, so the reason Tybalt's Trickery was banned in the first place is people were playing decks that were like 4 Violent Outburst, 1 Tybalt's Trickery, 1 Emrakul, and 54 lands. And it's like, I don't know, man, that's kind of cool. Am I crazy for thinking that's kind of cool? Where they just basically would cascade into the Tybalt's Trickery, hope they hit the Emrakul, so on and so forth. Like, I don't know. Those decks are never going to be able to win a tournament. They're never going to be that powerful because of the nature of the way that you have to build your deck. So, I don't know. I think it's like this kind of Timmy style card that, I don't know, maybe a hot take, but people wouldn't even play it if it was unbanned. You know what card people would play if it was unbanned? This just mistake of a Magic card. The One Ring, design mistake. I don't think I need to tell you why. Get basically 4 mana, Time Walk plus draw 3 cards. Yeah, no, just absolutely not. Move on. Field of the Dead. This is a weird one. Field of the Dead, to me, I don't know. I don't know if I want to put it in this S tier. I will say, again, back on my same argument with Summer Bloom before, it's kind of like this Amulet Titan ban, where as long as Amulet Titan is a good deck, we probably can't give it more tools. So I guess I would put it in the same category as Summer Bloom, not quite in that high level S tier, but I think at the end of the day, probably for the best should just stay on the ban list at this point. Hogak, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe recent printings will change this, but I think Hogak is probably the best card in the ban list. You could maybe make an argument for Nadu or something like that, which maybe I will make that argument, but yeah, 0 mana, 8/8 trample that you get to cast from your graveyard. That's a good card. It's a good card. That's all I got for you. I got nothing else. That's all I can. Arkham's Astrolabe. So this one's kind of weird, where Arkham's Astrolabe, I think, was mostly, this is a tricky one. I think it was banned because of Yorion, but also the other thing that Astrolabe kind of does to the format is it just allows decks to kind of do whatever they want without any sort of recourse. Where normally against 4 or 5 color decks that have a bunch of different cards and different colors, you can attack their mana with stuff like Blood Moon, Magus, Harbinger, things like that. But Arkham's Astrolabe basically just prevents you from doing that, and the cards that would normally be good against these 4-color soup decks are just not functional. So it's very hard to attack these styles of decks. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that the format could maybe use a little bit more of these 4-color decks. So I think I'm going to put it in one day or certain circumstances, just because, again, like the cards that maybe you just do put it with the Yorion. I mean, I guess Yorion plus Astrolabe at the same time would probably be a little bit too much, but I think one of those two to kind of inject some life into 4-color decks and incentivize people to play decks that don't just try to kill on turn 3 could maybe help the format a little bit. Fury and Grief. I don't know if I want to put these two together. They are both Evoke Elementals. Trying to think. Let's start with Grief, because I think Grief is certainly the more broken card. I will say, I think at the end of the day, the pitch elementals, I think, were a design mistake, but I don't necessarily think that they're a design mistake in the way that a lot of people look at it. Free spells are good for Modern. I was maybe a detractor at first, and I was one of the first people to be like, get their pitchforks out when we first saw free spells. But at the end of the day, I do really think that they kind of changed the dynamic and changed play draw quite a bit in the Modern format, and I can appreciate that. The problem is when cards like Grief and Fury get to work with Not Dead After All, Ephemerate, etc., etc. Grief, certainly the more powerful of the two. I think, again, I might get some hate in the comments for this one. I actually think Fury could potentially be in, honestly, maybe even in this category. Maybe I'll put it in one day or in certain circumstances, because basically the way that I look at it, if Boros Energy is too good, I think Fury is a reasonable, like, if you were like, okay, you were in a WotC R&D meeting or whatever they do for Banlist discussions, and you brought up a point in the meeting that Boros Energy is too good, we need to kind of take it down a peg. I think the removal of Fury from the ban list could be a reasonable way of accomplishing that goal, where if you're worried about the Boros Energy deck, which is playing a bunch of 2 and 1 toughness creatures, well, Fury's really good against that stuff. So, something to keep in mind. Speaking of energy, Amped Raptor. It's kind of a weird one. I'm not too sure about Amped Raptor. Man, I hadn't really thought about this one. This is probably one of the newer additions to the ban list. Initially, it was banned again because they wanted to. This was basically a power level ban for Boros, where they didn't want to kill the deck entirely, but they wanted to make it so that Boros got taken down a notch, and I think Amped Raptor was the way to do that. I feel like at this point, Boros could honestly maybe use a little bit of help. I kind of want to put Amped Raptor in the same category as Fury, where it's definitely, they're sort of good for different reasons, where I think Fury could be unbanned if Boros is too good, and then I think Amped Raptor could be unbanned if Boros is too bad, right? If we get to a point where Boros is just not seeing any play anymore. So, in the same category, but for very, very different reasons. Nadu Winged Wisdom, easily, again, I'm not sure which one of these two cards is better between Nadu and Hogak. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but I do think these are the two best cards on the entire ban list, maybe like 1A and 1B, and don't ever let that bird free. Just don't do it. Mystic Sanctuary, I'm going to put stay banned. I don't know, though. Like, I could certainly... Trying to think, given the way the format has been going, I've been talking about all of these, how there's so many OTK decks and all these decks that are trying to kill on turn 3. And again, Mystic Sanctuary doesn't necessarily promote that. So if you wanted to maybe give people some more tools for playing games that go turns 4, 5, and 6, I think Sanctuary is a reasonable way of doing that, but it does kind of have this like lockout potential with Cryptic Command. Although, again, that costs 10 million mana to set up, so maybe that's fine. Maybe the people who are doing Sanctuary Cryptic stuff are the people we want to be promoting, so throw it in the can't be unbanned with a playtest? Maybe? I have Ugin, similar thing. Eldrazi decks are just, we don't need to make Eldrazi decks better. They're already some of the best decks in the format. It's funny because when they banned Eye of Ugin, they wanted to make it so that the Eldrazi decks only had 4 soul lands, and then they just printed another soul land anyways. So it feels like it kind of defeated the purpose of banning Eye of Ugin in the first place, but I'll say they don't need 12. Second Sunrise, okay, this one's kind of weird because this was banned for the same reasons as Sensei's Divining Top, just due to the simple fact that it made tournaments go too long. I don't think Second Sunrise decks are playable in 2025. I'm sure people would try them, but it's weird, right? Like, you look at a card like Second Sunrise, and I think that we can all agree that it would be completely unplayable in this current age. Maybe there'd be a little something there, but not a lot of people would play it, right? But what Second Sunrise does to a tournament is it, on average, makes a tournament go longer by an extra, 40 minutes or so. Or maybe it's 10 minutes per person who plays the Sunrise deck. I don't know what the numbers kind of average out to. And I think for those reasons, we probably should keep it banned, but it kind of depends on how you look at it. If you're thinking of power level reasons, why is this banned? It's one of the worst cards in the ban list. But for tournament logistics, it's up here. I don't know. This is very close. I'm going to put it down here, even though I know why it's banned because I just answered that question. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of a weird one for sure. Cloud Post. People love to have conversations about Cloud Post and like how it's worse than Lab Temple, it's worse than Tron Lands, but I don't know, man. I feel like those people just never played with Cloud Post. I'm going to put Cloud Post in Stay Banned. I'm not going to put it in the same category as Ayavugan because I don't think Cloud Post is in this S tier of cards. But I do think that we probably don't want to be playing Cloud Post with all the Eldrazi lands. That's probably a little too much. Birthing Pod. I'm still astonished to this day that Birthing Pod is banned because I think Birthing Pod is just a worse card than Birthing Ritual. So why is it banned? Gitaxian Probe, design mistake? Absolutely not. We cannot have this card back. I'm not going to put Probe necessarily in the same category as Nadu and Hogak, but Probe is certainly one of the most powerful cards ever printed. It doesn't cost you anything to put Probe into your deck, and you get free information. Like, the reason that Magic is such a complex and complicated game is the fact that there's a lot of that uncertainty. You never know what your opponent has, and Probe just allows you to just completely sidestep that. It kind of removes a whole element of the game. Horrible card, horrible design mistake. Same thing as Mental Misstep, horribly designed card. Something tells me they're probably never going to go back to Phyrexian mana. Golgari Grave Troll. This is such a weird one. I feel like every time we have conversations about the modern ban list, I always look at Golgari Grave Troll and I think to myself, they could probably unban that. And then you go back and look, they've already unbanned this card twice. Or maybe it was once. I can't even remember. I do remember when they unbanned it and then had to reban it. I think it was only been unbanned once. So it's weird, right? Like, it feels like one of those cards that I think at this point in Modern's history, in this point, like where the format is right now, you could probably unban it and it would be, I think, okay. But it just kind of has that track record where you feel like they're never going to unban it just because they've already had to reban it once. So they don't want to just go down that same rabbit hole. So a bit of a weird one, but I'm going to put Troll in the stay ban category. Man, I was going to put Deathrite Shaman in more ban than before, but I don't know. Now, obviously, Deathrite Shaman, extremely powerful card with fetch lands. But like, yeah, all right, that's fine. I thought about it a little bit more, and then I realized, yeah, Deathrite Shaman's just a 1-mana planeswalker, and it also gives decks that wouldn't normally have access to mana acceleration, access to that type of stuff, where you can put Deathrite in your mono black deck or Dimir deck or something like that, and just have access to that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So yeah, probably needs to be in the S tier, I think, but I don't know. You can make an argument for putting it in that tier. Skull Clamp. A lot of people don't remember Skull Clamp because it was legal in Standard for, I think, a month and a half. So you got to play it in Standard. I'm pretty sure it was instantly banned and extended as well. So Standard extended, I want to say Legacy too. And then in Modern's inception, Skull Clamp was pre-banned. So you've literally only had, if you're a constructed Magic player, you've probably only had like 3 months total lifetime to play with this card. But I was playing during that time, and I remember how broken Skull Clamp is. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one up there. There's just way too much degenerate things you can do with Skull Clamp. Just drawing your entire deck. Also, Skull Clamp really broken with Glaring Fleshraker, because the Fleshraker gives you tokens that you can equip the Clamp, and it gives you mana that you can equip other stuff to. So yeah, probably shouldn't try that one out. Ponder's kind of a weird one. I actually think Ponder could be easily unbanned today, and it would be totally fine. I feel like we were having a similar conversation prior to Preordained getting unbanned. I don't remember exactly what I said the last time, but I mean, it's in the same camp as Preordained. I do think Ponder is a better card than Preordained, but at the same time, like, how many decks in Modern would play for Ponder for Preordained? Maybe is it Prowess? Maybe there's some like blue, red, or Jeskai, Ascendancy, Cori-steel Cutter, Mox Opal deck that would want to play 8 cantrips. Maybe there's a deck that we're not thinking of that would be essentially created due to the fact that we have 8 cantrips now. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, I think that stuff is okay. And again, it's more of the same stuff that I think you want to be promoting with the ban list. So I would like to see Plunder come off. I think it would be fine. You know, it would not be fine. Treasure Cruise. Now, I did mention I was going to have this conversation. Treasure Cruise is just in a different tier, a different category than Dig Through Time for me, just because the decks that play Treasure Cruise, they literally do not care what cards they're looking for. When Treasure Cruise was in Modern, people were playing it in Blue-Red Delver and Burn and Death Shadow and all of these decks that are just like, just kind of shoving resources at you. And it, as long as they can trade like 1 mana for any sort of card whatsoever, they don't really care what cards they're getting off of the cruise, because if you're trading a bunch of 1-for-1s, if you're going like Fatal Push your guy, Lightning Bolt your guy, things like that, then you are effectively maintaining parity, and then you cast Cruise, and it doesn't matter what those 3 cards are. You're up 3 cards in your opponent. So yeah, Cruise, broken, get it out of here. Don't ever come back. Underworld Breach, same thing. Just, you know, we have this experiment with how long could Underworld Breach last in Modern. I'm honestly surprised it lasted as long as it did. But yeah, Mox Opal was certainly the turning point for that card. And I wouldn't even necessarily call it the turning point. I would just say Mox Opal revealed Breach's flaws, which in a way that people had not done before. Now, this one's probably going to be a little controversial because I've said this on my Twitch stream several times in the past couple of weeks. I think Uro is a worse card than Flage. And feel free to yell at me and scream at me in the comment section down below. But to be quite honest with you, if they're not going to ban Flage, I could realistically see Uro coming off the ban list as a counter to Flage. And remember, we don't have all of the stuff that we had during Uro, like when Uro was busted, Oko, Once Upon a Time, things like that. We don't have those kind of cards. So, like, what deck would, I mean, you would put it in some sort of Bant or 4-color Omnath pile, I get it. But I don't know, I think, again, those seem like decks to me that could use a shot in the arm, given how degenerate the format has become. I don't know if I should be putting Simian Spirit Guide in the same tier as all of these other cards, but given the fact that I put Rite of Flame up here, I kind of feel obligated to put Spirit Guide because they are essentially the same card, kind of. Rite of Flame is more powerful than Spirit Guide, but basically any card that allows you to cast Chalice of the Void on turn 1 should not be legal. Next. Hypergenesis. Yeah, why? Why is this still banned? I mean, they printed a better Hypergenesis in Glimpse of Tomorrow, and that card saw a little bit of play. People did play Glimpse decks, but yeah, I don't really think Hypergenesis would even be close to a problem. So, same thing with Bridge from Below. Honestly, Bridge from Below, why are we still here? Just get this bottom list Shaft off the ban list and just clean it up a little bit. Bridge from Below was initially, funny enough, banned for Hogak sins, where Hogak got printed, they banned Bridge from Below, Hogak was still too broken, and then they finally said, all right, well, I guess we'll ban Hogak. So, yeah, banned for Hogak sins, and last but not least, up the Beanstalk. Yeah, I mean... Okay, I'm not going to put Beanstalk in S tier, but I do think it should remain banned. Especially, no, you know what? With Quantum Riddler, yeah, I'm gonna... I forgot about that. Beanstalk would kind of be a little too messed up with Quantum Riddler. So we'll put Beanstalk in the more banned than before territory. Huh, there you go. So there is the Modern ban list. Looking at this list, I think we did a pretty good job. Bottom list, I think all of those could easily come off and be totally fine. I don't even think they would see a ton of play. The 4 in the tier above, again, just injecting life into decks that feel like they need life injected to them. The middle row, that's where it gets a little tricky. Again, a little bit of controversial takes there, and then the rest, I think, should stay banned for eternity, basically. So, there we have it. Modern banned cards tier list. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tell me why I am an idiot for thinking that Uro could be unbanned. And again, I would love to hear your thoughts if you guys have some ideas for some tier lists that we could maybe try out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, adios.